Hello, welcome to another tutorial from me, Joeli. Today I want to talk about using StitchMastery and specifically how to customize your stitch library and your written instructions. So, for example, this is a fresh install of StitchMastery on my computer, and you can see that the cables use this 1-1 RC, so a 1/1 right cable notation or 1/1 left cable notation. Now that's not what I use in my pattern. For me, if this was a 2-stitch cable, this would be C2B for cable 2 backwards, and this one would be C2F for a cable 2 forwards. So I want to customize. You can see if you right click, you get a customize button, and this tells you what to do in case you forget. Says to create a user stitch library that can be customized, select Preferences, Knitting Chart Editor, and then Stitch Libraries. So we go to Knitting Chart Editor, then we go to Preferences, then you'll see you have Namespace, Stitch Libraries, Style Sheets, and Workspace options. The first thing you need to do is create a namespace. So I'm going to use Joeli Creates and hit OK. So then once you've created your namespace, you can go to Stitch Libraries. The default one that we've been using is .English, so then you can just hit Extend, and so the name, you can customize that, so I can just say Joeli Creates Stitch Library, and the reason why you might want to name it clearly is if you have multiple stitch libraries. For example, you might have one that you use because you regularly work with a certain magazine publication and they prefer their stitches named one way, and then for your own personal patterns you might do it a different way. So I like to just name it clearly. So it's the Joeli Creates Stitch Library. The description doesn't matter. We'll just change this to Joeli's Personal Stitch Library in English based on the StitchMastery font. Its language is English. That's telling you all the folders. So we can just change the file name to Joeli Creates Stitch Library. And then we hit OK. Now we can edit everything. So if I scroll down to where the cables are. Now this is a little bit tricky. Well, it's not tricky. It's a little bit of a pain because you do have to do this multiple times. So you can double click and it comes up with this edit stitch, and so you can change the name and the abbreviation. So this consumes 2 stitches, so I would say this is a cable 2 back, and I want my abbreviation to be cable 2 back. The long description is the same. I'm not going to change that, so you can see it says place at back of work. That's why I've called it C2B. The mirror is fine. That's the other stitch. I'm going to go edit that one. So I just hit OK, and that's changed that. And then I go through. You can right click or double click. So this is cable 2 front. Cable 2 front. You can see its mirror is now cable 2 back. And I just hit OK. And so you would do that for all of the stitches that you want to rename. For example, place marker, I don't use PL marker or PLM. The name is place marker, but the abbreviation for me would be PM. Slip marker, that's fine. I don't ever use the move markers. So that is how you change what the abbreviation shows up. This changes how it shows up in the sidebar, and then if I just hit OK, what you want to make sure you do is now your default stitch library needs to be changed to the one we created. Hit OK. So then because I've already loaded this up and it was in the old stitch library, you just hit edit, you hit diagram, edit diagram properties, and then you change the stitch library to the one we just created. So now you can see they've been updated, and here they are, completely updated. So you can see it's changed it both in the key and in the written instructions. Now, my favorite thing about StitchMastery is that it outputs these written instructions. But I don't use round spelled out. I use round repeated or abbreviated. So I can output this text and then do a find and replace, or I can change the style sheet. So it's again, knitting chart editor, preferences, then you go to style sheets. So you have a few that you can play around with. Let's go to default written. I'm going to duplicate it and I'm going to change the name. So Joeli creates style sheet. I do want to capitalize the row and round contents, but you could uncheck that. I do want to ignore hidden rows. I do want to condense rows and rounds when possible. I include stitch count only if different, and include right side, wrong side labels for rows only in the first instance of each. That is fine with me. Hit OK. So that is my default written that I've changed. I'm going to change that down there. So if any of those are different for you, that is where you would change those. Then we're going to look at default appearance preferences. This is where you can change your default font and things like that. I'm going to actually leave that one alone, but if you want to change those, that's where you would do it. And then the main one is your default text templates. So if we view those, you can see this is where you're changing things like your key title, your rows, your repeats. So again, I'm going to duplicate this. I always like to duplicate before I make any changes. So edit and view, row labels, round label, you just hit edit, and then instead of round, I abbreviate it. And I hit OK. And so now it tells me that is what the rounds are going to look like. The other thing that I particularly like to change is the asterisk repeat. She does asterisk contents work from star, and I want to edit that, and I would do repeat from star. That's just my personal style sheet. Another one that I like to change is the stitch count. I don't put my stitch count in parentheses, and I like a period after it. So I would just remove those parentheses and put in a period. So there are a lot more things I would change, but let's just hit those 3 for now. Hit OK. I've changed the defaults down here. Hit OK. So that means when we load up a new chart from now on, it's always going to use those defaults. And to change it in this, we do edit diagram properties. Again, stitch library, we change those. Change it in the written instructions. We left the appearance alone. We hit OK. And now you can see our output has now changed to round. And the 15 stitches has removed the parentheses and it now has a period. But round 2 and all even number rounds has not changed. So these are things that we're just going to either go through it carefully or just change them as you notice them. So it's row content, no, it's, here we go, row labels. So I need to edit this one to do round and all even number rounds. And then I would want to change the odd one while I'm at it. So the next problem is that this knit 1, it just shows a K, and I want that to show knit 1. So the thing we need to edit is under your text templates style sheet, it's stitch template condensed single. If you hit edit, you see it says for single stitch for knit and purl, you just put a 1 in there. Hit OK, hit OK, hit OK, and then just go to edit diagram properties, hit OK so it updates, and you can see we now have a knit 1 there. That is how to customize your stitches as they appear in your key and your output text, as well as how to change the style of your output text. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If you found this helpful, please hit that thumbs up button, and I will talk to you soon.